88% of adults in the United States are not metabolically healthy. Heart disease is preventable with the right diet and lifestyle interventions. Dietary saturated fat is not causing heart disease.
What do you think now is the cause of heart disease?
The primary driver of heart disease is...
Meet Dr. Philip Ovadia, who graduated from the University of Pennsylvania School of Medicine and completed his residency at Tufts New England Medical. Dr. Ovadia is a renowned carnivore heart surgeon with impressive credentials and author of the insightful book Stay Off My Operating Table. Heart disease is the leading cause of death worldwide. And today, we'll uncover the secrets straight from Dr. Ovadia's expertise about the cause of heart disease. For decades, we've been told to avoid saturated fats and cholesterol-rich foods. But according to Dr. Ovadia, this advice has been misguided. Listen to his personal story.
See you.
Well, as a heart surgeon, you wrote an amazing book called Stay Off My Operating Table. And that's pretty unexpected from a heart surgeon. So I'd love to know what inspired you to write that book.
Yeah, so, it was really the combination of my personal story and my professional experience that led me to writing the book. I have been a heart surgeon for 20 years now, done over 3,000 heart surgeries. And during much of that time, I was a very unhealthy heart surgeon. I was at a point that I got morbidly obese. I had developed prediabetes, and I realized that I was going to end up on my own operating table, so to speak. But I was at a bit of a loss because I didn't know what to do. I was following the advice that I had learned to give my patients: eat less, move more, eat a low-fat diet, all the things that we've heard. And it wasn't working for me, and it wasn't working for them. And thankfully, I started to come across some different information that led me to ask some different questions to really start to understand the root cause of heart disease, which I had been treating for my entire career, obesity, diabetes, these chronic conditions that were leading patients to my operating table. Ultimately, I was able to overcome my own health challenges. I, lost nearly 100 pounds, have maintained that weight loss now for many years. And I was able to come to a true understanding of what the root cause of heart disease is, so that now I can help people to prevent it. And that has really, refocused me and given me a mission in life, I would say, to keep as many people as possible off of my operating table. Because the reality is the vast majority of what I do as a heart surgeon shouldn't need to be done. Heart disease should be preventable and is preventable in the vast majority of cases with the right, diet and lifestyle interventions. And we do a very lousy job at that in medicine, I would say in mainstream medicine, but I realize how important it is, because ultimately, no matter how good a surgeon I might be, no matter how good all the heart surgeons out there might be, you're never going to be as good after the surgery as you would have been if you didn't need the surgery in the first place.
So I'm curious, for people watching out there, what was the advice that you were told, that you followed, that made you sick and morbidly obese as well? What was that advice?
Yeah, I think it's, the dietary advice that we've all heard. Here it's the US dietary guidelines, it's the food pyramid. But I think the fatal flaw within that food pyramid is this concept that we should be eating low-fat diets. I think we can clearly now go back and say the science that led to that recommendation was flawed, maybe fraudulent, and the outcomes of following that diet are disastrous. They're all around us. They're the, skyrocketing rates of obesity and diabetes that we see. There are the 88% of adults in the United States that are not metabolically healthy. And it's the fact that heart disease, the very condition that was designed to impact, remains far and away the number one killer. And really, there's very little to no evidence that low fat diets have had any benefit on the incidence of heart disease. And I would say that it's made it worse because they do promote obesity and diabetes, which are major risk factors for heart disease.
As Dr. Ovadia points out, that this high-carb, low-fat approach can actually contribute to metabolic syndrome and heart disease. So what is the causes of heart disease? Here is what Dr. Ovadia said.
That you have in your own experience, what do you think now is the cause of heart disease?
Yeah, and you're exactly right about needing that why. And that's why in my book, I talk about the principles, the 7 principles of metabolic health. And the first principle is really that mindset issue, because knowing all the facts, reading all the studies, all of that is great. But at the end of the day, it's not going to be enough to sustain you if you don't know why you're making these changes. So, very important point to re-emphasize. And ultimately, my why had 2 components to it. It had my family and my children and my wife that I want to be there for, but it also had being there for my patients and being a better doctor. And that meant truly understanding and getting to the root cause of heart disease, the disease, like I said, that I spend every day fighting against with my patients. And, again, this is an area where we have had many, I would say, misunderstandings, and physicians have been misled to believe that cholesterol and dietary saturated fat are the primary drivers of heart disease. We now know that not to be true. That hypothesis has been, I would say, thoroughly disproven on many levels. And when we really want to look at the root cause of heart disease, it comes down to damage to the blood vessel walls from inflammation and primarily from insulin resistance. There are some other things that contribute, like smoking, that can cause damage to the blood vessel walls, heavy metal toxicities, other things. But the primary driver of heart disease is insulin resistance and poor metabolic health. And I know that if we were to focus on that to the same degree that we focused on lowering cholesterol, we would have a major impact on the incidence of heart disease.
Well, the big question.
So, what contribute to the insulin resistance and poor metabolic health? Insulin resistance occurs when the body's cells become less responsive to insulin, a hormone that regulates blood sugar levels. This condition leads to an accumulation of glucose in the bloodstream rather than being absorbed by the cells for energy. Major factors contributing to insulin resistance include genetics, poor diet, like high in sugars and refined carbs, lack of exercise, and chronic inflammation. Metabolic health refers to the optimal functioning of the body's processes that regulate blood sugar, cholesterol, blood pressure, and energy balance. Poor metabolic health is indicated by high blood sugar levels, high blood pressure, abnormal cholesterol levels, and excess abdominal fat. So the question is, how do you fix insulin resistance?
Well, the big question, how do you fix insulin resistance?
Yeah, it really starts with the food that you eat, and the other lifestyle components that are going to help as well. But I tell people to start with the food that you're eating, because that is the major influencer. That is what leads us to become insulin resistant, and ultimately, as that progresses, we then get to diabetes, and that's the major way that we can undo it. And this is another important concept for people to understand. Diabetes is a reversible disease. Type 2 diabetes is a reversible disease. And people don't get told that. They get told it's a lifelong condition. You got to take your medications. We have to manage it as well as possible. And we now have ample evidence that type 2 diabetes can be reversed. And in doing so, you are reversing the insulin resistance as well. And again, this is the common root cause that not only heart disease and diabetes share, but the majority of the chronic disease that plagues our society. Things like cancer, many forms of cancer, Alzheimer's disease. You can keep going down and down the list. And it seems like almost every chronic disease that is so prominent in society today has its roots in metabolic health and insulin.
By understanding and addressing these conditions, individuals can improve their overall health and reduce the risk of chronic diseases. So what are the most dangerous foods that you shouldn't eat? Listen to what Dr. Ovadia says.
What foods shouldn't I be eating? Tell me the list. Let's first talk about the foods that we should not be eating, the most dangerous foods that are going to cause heart disease, cancer, diabetes, and all the rest of it. In your opinion as a heart surgeon, what are those foods?
Yeah, so I think we first have to look at the processed foods. These are the things that come in the packages and the boxes and the bags. These are the things that have these long ingredient lists. And in particular, they have two components that are problematic. The first is highly processed carbohydrates, the flours and the sugars that aren't really anywhere close to their natural form. And then we have the vegetable and the seed oils. These are adulterated, manufactured fats that, again, our bodies did not see these things until our very recent history. They do not exist in nature, and they have some unique and problematic effects when we consume them that I believe are major contributors to these chronic diseases that we're seeing.
So, processed foods, anything in a box or a package. Sugar?
Yeah, I think sugar needs to be very carefully consumed, if at all. And if you are metabolically broken, if you're insulin resistant, that means that your body is intolerant of sugar and carbohydrates. And the best way to manage that is to eliminate it. You certainly need to lower it. And in most cases, the answer is just eliminate it. It is not essential for life. We don't need to be eating it. So if you want to have the greatest impact, elimination of sugar is going to be the way to go.
Okay. And here is another question. What about these natural sugars like fruit? What do you think about fruit?
Well, again, our body doesn't really differentiate much between, or if at all, between natural sugars that are in fruit and, the processed sugars. It's all sugar. It all goes through the same metabolic pathways. So whether or not you can eat fruit is going to depend on your personal situation. If you are metabolically healthy, if you are not insulin resistant, if you are active and you have a good amount of muscle mass, then yes, your body is going to be able to tolerate some sugar. And, there are various things that we can do to figure out how much is too much for you. But if you're not all of those things, and if you're like most adults, certainly here in the United States and really I would say worldwide at this point, and you are insulin resistant or you're obese or you have diabetes, your body is going to be intolerant of that. It can't process it well. And so any amount is going to be harmful, whether it's coming from the piece of fruit or the candy bar. It's still all sugar.
As Dr. Ovadia points out, processed foods are best avoided. These foods, which include fast food, packaged snacks, and frozen meals, are often loaded with unhealthy fats, sugars, and sodium. Additionally, Sugary beverages like sodas, sweetened teas, and energy drinks contribute to weight gain and heighten your risk of diabetes, a major risk factor for heart disease. And the most shocking food that you might avoid is fruits if you are metabolic broken. Ultimately, it's your choice to determine whether you should or shouldn't eat fruits based on your health conditions. By consulting healthcare professionals, monitoring your body's responses, and making informed dietary choices, you can enjoy the benefits of fruits while maintaining your overall health. So what should you be eating instead? Let's break down some of Dr. Ovadia's top recommendations.
So the loaded question is, what is something that's going to work for most people?
Yeah, so the first principle that people need to be following when they're thinking about what to eat is to eat whole, real food. I tell people, eat the things that grow in the ground and eat the things that eat the things that grow in the ground. Now, as we're making these dietary changes, I want people to focus on metabolic health and insulin resistance. That should be your guidepost. If what you're eating is improving your metabolic health or helping you to maintain your metabolic health, then I am all in favor of it, and that is a good dietary strategy for you. And you're right, I can't sit here and say everyone should be eating X diet. It's why in the book I didn't give you Dr. Ovadia's 21-day diet plan like so many of these books do. I give you a framework to work within, and I give you a lot of options of things that can work if done in the right way. And I also give you the pitfalls of all of these dietary strategies that will prevent them from improving your metabolic health and helping you ultimately achieve the success you're looking for. So what I lead people back to is our focus is on improving and optimizing your metabolic health. You're going to figure out the strategy within the eat whole real food rule that gets you to success. And you're going to recognize that that may even change over time, because not only is there not one right diet for everyone, but even for each individual, at different times, at different points in your life, depending on where you are in terms of that metabolic health, the dietary strategy may need to change some. And, we talked about fruit earlier and how if you're not metabolically healthy, fruit should be off your menu. But if you are metabolically healthy and you want to incorporate it, not that it's mandatory, but you want to incorporate it some, there are ways to do that while still maintaining your metabolic health, and I have no problems with those.
Okay. And I know that you follow a carnivore lifestyle, as do I. So why did you choose that lifestyle over, for example, keto or paleo?
Yeah, so ultimately, and I tried all of the above. Ultimately, carnivore is what I settled on for two reasons. The first reason is that's what helps me to feel my best. There are improvements that I noticed on carnivore that while I had lots of improvements on keto, low carb, paleo, all of that stuff, carnivore really got me to what I feel is my best point. And the second reason I maintain my carnivore lifestyle is because I find it easiest to do. It just is pretty simple, don't have to track, don't have to think about it. I just eat animal-based products and, when I'm hungry, eat till I'm full. And it fits very well into my, busy life. And that's what has kept me with it now for over 4 years.
Now, making a dietary shift can be challenging, but here are some tips to get started. Begin by slowly reducing your intake of processed foods and sugary beverages. Replace them with whole, nutrient-dense options like the ones we've discussed. Plan your meals ahead of time to avoid the temptation of unhealthy choices. And remember, it's about progress, not perfection. Small changes can lead to significant improvements in your heart health. To wrap it up, protecting your heart health starts with what you put on your plate. By avoiding the worst foods and embracing nutrient-dense, heart-friendly options, you can make a powerful impact on your health. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe for more health tips. And remember, your heart will thank you for every healthy choice you make. Until next time, take care and eat well.